Chapter 7. No Attainment, No Speaking. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Has the Tathagata spoken of any Dharma? Subhuti replied, As I understand the meaning of what the Buddha has taught, there is no fixed Dharma called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, nor is there any Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. Why? Because the Dharma that the Tathagata has expounded is not something that can be grasped or spoken of. It is neither Dharma nor non-Dharma. Why is this so? Because all sages and saints have different levels of spiritual attainment because their understanding and realization of non-Dharma, the unconditioned Dharma, vary. Attaining and speaking of what? Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Has the Tathagata spoken of any Dharma? After saying this, the Buddha again asked Subhuti, What is your opinion? Do you think that I, as someone who has become a Buddha, have attained the supreme enlightenment? Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, in simple terms, means great enlightenment. Do you think that becoming a Buddha means truly attaining something? This was the first question. Has the Tathagata spoken of any Dharma? The second question was, do you think that I, as the Tathagata, are teaching the Dharma? Subhuti replied, As I understand the meaning of what the Buddha has taught, there is no fixed Dharma called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, nor is there any fixed Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. Subhuti responded, Buddha, I'm sorry, but if I understand correctly, based on the teachings I've received, there is no fixed Dharma called the Buddha Dharma. Pay attention to this. There is no fixed Dharma called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. If you think that chanting the Buddha's name is the Dharma, you're mistaken. If you think that practicing Chan is the Dharma, you're also mistaken. If you think that chanting mantras is the Dharma, you're even more mistaken. And if you think that bowing to the Buddha is the Dharma, you're most mistaken of all. What is meant by a fixed Dharma? The Buddha's teachings are like those of a great educator who doesn't use rigid methods, but rather adapts to the student. Sometimes scolding is a way to educate. Sometimes rewarding is a way to educate. Praising you is a way, and making you uncomfortable is also a way. The idea is to stimulate you in such a way that the door to your wisdom opens. Hence, there is no fixed Dharma. He said, As I understand it, enlightenment, supreme enlightenment, has no fixed method called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. If there were a fixed method to become enlightened, to attain awakening, then the Dharma would be deceiving people. There is no fixed place for the mind to dwell, so how could there be a fixed method for Dharma? The second question Subhuti answered, There is no fixed Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. The Buddha's teachings, the collection of 3 baskets and 12 divisions of the sutras, all have various methods. The Diamond Sutra explains one way. The Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment explains another way. The Lotus Sutra another way, and the Shurangama Sutra another. It's like when people say, You Buddhists are clever. If it rains, you say it's a blessing. If the sun shines, you say it's a manifestation of wisdom. And if it's neither sunny nor rainy, you say it's a compassionate cloud covering the world. Whatever the weather, you have a good explanation. What does this mean? This is what it means to say, there is no fixed Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. Where is the Dharma? It is not necessarily found in the Buddhist scriptures. All worldly laws are the Buddha Dharma, as the Diamond Sutra will explain later. So don't separate the spirit of learning Buddhism from your life and reality. There is no such division as of being worldly or transcendent. An elder once asked me, "Given your level, why haven't you become a monk?" I replied, I've never been in the world to begin with. How could I detach from something I've never attached to? All these distinctions are just appearances, just forms. Why is this so? Because the Dharma that the Tathagata has expounded cannot be grasped or spoken of. It is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. Everyone should pay special attention to this. The Dharma that the Tathagata has expounded cannot be grasped or spoken of. If you listen to what he has said and think that this is correct, then you have fallen into your own trap. It cannot be grasped or spoken of. What is spoken is secondary, just a reflection. The real thing cannot be expressed in words. For example, if you taste something delicious and describe it to me, no matter how well you describe it, I won't actually taste it myself. No matter how accurately you describe it, it's still just a reflection, not the actual taste. The Buddha Dharma is the same. What can be spoken of or expressed is no longer the real thing. Therefore, what the Tathagata teaches cannot be grasped or spoken of. It is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. Differences in understanding. Why is this so? Because all sages and saints have different levels of spiritual attainment due to their understanding and realization of non-Dharma, the unconditioned Dharma, vary. This is the greatness of the Buddhism teachings. Unlike other religions that deny the validity of anything outside of their own teachings, Buddhism acknowledges all religions, all masters, and even at the highest level of the Avatamsaka, flower garland state, it acknowledges that even all the demonic and heretical forces have truth in them. As long as you teach people to do good, there's correctness in that. So all sages and saints, whether arhats or bodhisattvas, whether it's you or someone else, they only differ in their understanding of the Tao. The Tao, the way of Jesus, the Tao of the Buddha, the Tao of Muhammad, the Tao of Confucius, the Tao of Laozi, which is the true Tao, is any Tao greater or lesser? There's only one truth, but the Buddhist scriptures have a metaphor, like blind men touching an elephant, each grasping one part. Blind people touch an elephant. One touches its ear and thinks the elephant is like a fan. Another touches its tail and thinks it's like a rope. So, as the saying, a group of blind men touching an elephant, each grasping a part of the whole, considering one way is the Tao, the other isn't, is a subjective understanding. Buddhists should not make this mistake, because there is no fixed Dharma to be spoken. Therefore, the true Buddha Dharma can encompass everything. To truly reach the Buddha's realm is to embrace all phenomena, to negate all phenomena, and to establish all phenomena. This is the Buddha's realm, to be equally transcendent and worldly. Let's revisit some key points in Chapter 7. The Buddha proposes that even after attaining Buddhahood and enlightenment, there is no such thing as attainment. If you have an idea of the supreme enlightenment, if the concept of a supreme Tao exists in your mind, this is no longer the true Tao. This is the first thing to understand. Secondly, regarding the Buddha's teachings, there is no fixed Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. There is no fixed method. Later, different schools of Buddhism emerged, such as the exoteric and esoteric teachings and various sects. If you become attached to any one of these as the true Buddha Dharma, you are mistaken because there is no fixed Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. The Lotus Sutra also states, all worldly laws are the Buddha Dharma. Everything in the world is the Buddha Dharma. The Lotus Sutra also says, all activities of in daily life do not contradict the ultimate reality. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave the world, leave your family, and hide away in a cold mountain temple to practice. Engaging in life activities such as business or other means of making a living does not contradict the fundamental metaphysical principle. There is no difference between them. This is the key point of the Lotus Sutra, one of the universal teachings in Buddhism. The worldly path and the transcendent path are equal. They achieve the same result. The only difference lies in the difficulty of practice. This is also the essence of there is no fixed Dharma that the Tathagata can expound. The Buddha extends this idea further by saying, the Dharma that the Tathagata has expounded cannot be grasped or spoken of. It's as if the Buddha himself is denying the entirety of his teachings over 49 years. But in reality, he is affirming it. The various teachings and principles he has taught should not be clung to. If you cling to any of his words, you are wrong. Therefore, they cannot be grasped or spoken of. Thus, in explaining the Diamond Sutra, we are already violating the fundamental rule of the Buddha, which is that it cannot be grasped or spoken of. This is something that one must realize internally. If you believe there is a Dharma that can be obtained or grasped, you are wrong. If you think the Buddha's teachings are all empty and there is no Dharma to grasp, you are also wrong. Hence, it is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. This doesn't mean that not being attached is correct. If you think that being unattached is correct, you are already attached to the idea of being unattached. Hence, it is neither Dharma nor not Dharma. The difference between sages and saints. What do we mean by sages and saints? In Chinese culture, there is an unspoken distinction. The highest level of cultivation, knowledge and morality is referred to as a saint. Those who are still on the path are referred to as sages. In Buddhism, the distinctions are even clearer. There are the 3 worthies and the 10 saints. In Mahayana Buddhism, there are 10 stages on the path of bodhisattva cultivation called the 10 grounds. Above the 10th ground is the Buddha. Before reaching the first ground of the 10 grounds, there are 30 levels of cultivation, known as the 10 abodes, the 10 practices, and the 10 dedications. Those who have reached this level, but have not yet attained the fruit of the 10 grounds, belong to the 3 worthies. As for the 10 saints, for example, bodhisattvas like Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, and Ksitigarbha. These great bodhisattvas are in the saintly fruit position. These are classification methods, later interpretations of cultivation. To give a broad example of all sages and saints have different levels of spiritual attainment because their understanding and realization of non-dharma are different. People who have taught for a long time know this experience well. In a classroom, a teacher says one thing. 100 students will have different levels of understanding and feelings. Some might take notes, but when reading their own notes later, their understanding will vary greatly. This means that people's wisdom and comprehension are different, which is why we have various religions and different levels of understanding and wisdom. From chapter 1 to chapter 7 of the Diamond Sutra, it's all about one continuous question. Subhuti asking how someone practicing Buddhism can make their mind calm, how to subdue the emotions, thoughts, and troubles in their mind. The Buddha replied, "This is how you dwell. This is how you subdue your mind." Later, seeing that Subhuti didn't fully understand, the Buddha added, "Dwell without attachment," instructing us to carefully guard our thoughts. Up to this point, the Buddha has not said, "Dwell without attachment and thus give rise to the mind." He has only said, "Dwell without attachment." Therefore, even the Buddha Dharma should not be clung to. There is no fixed Dharma to be spoken. If you think that the Buddha Dharma is Prajnaparamita, or the Diamond Sutra, or the Amitabha Sutra, you are mistaken because you are still attached to something. The Buddha only said, "Dwell without attachment. Do not dwell, do not speak." So don't become attached to any specific method of practice. If your mind is attached to something, if it is hindered by anything, it is not the Buddha Dharma. A key topic is concluded here.